Book. All right, here we go. Hello, friend. I have a story today, and it is a story about eating disorder recovery. You might be able to relate if you've ever gone through times where you were trying to lose weight, trying to get healthy, and you had an idea of like going to an event like a Christmas party, which is this one's about, and you have the whole plan of protein veggies only and no drinking sort of thing, or maybe only one glass of wine. And so this is how the story is. But for me, I was in recovery from bulimia, addiction, and all the depression that came along with it. And so it's a pretty good story. It's a little bit emotional, but anyways, I'll get into it. It has a really good ending. You might be able to relate to it if you've had any issues with addiction or eating disorders. So it was Christmas time, and it was Christmas of 2008, and it was whenever I was in recovery. I was actually doing pretty well where I could maybe go for 1 or 2 days where I wasn't binging on food, which is good because for the past 5 years, it was like binging on food multiple times per day, even though I didn't want to. And so I had a plan. We were invited to a Christmas event. I was with my parents, and their friend in Arkansas had a daughter who was going to be in the Nutcracker play at the University of Arkansas. And so my parents invited me to go with them because everyone was going to see the performance and then go back to their house to have dinner and drinks and all of that. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go. And, we went until the Nutcracker, which was fine. And then we get to their house, and I had a plan of not drinking wine and, drinking protein and veggies only. And so I get there, and immediately their kitchen is full of just magnum bottles of every type of wine, red wine, white wine, sparkling. And I immediately like broke my plan. I asked, they had servers there because it was a pretty nice, like fancy party. And I asked one to pour me a glass of wine. And I was like, okay, I think this will be the only one. I go make my first little plate. I go in there. First of all, they have like all these tables with all these beautiful Christmas foods. They have, the Christmas cookies, the cakes, fudge. They have charcuterie boards and bacon wrapped dates and all these sort of things like sugar and carbs and stuff back then. I had a hard time eating because I thought it would make me fat if I ate any. So if I ate some, I would just be like, oh, F it and eat a lot and just give up. So I made my little plate of protein veggies, was still hungry, of course. And then I ate a little bit more, ended up eating the sugar and the food I was so guilty about. And so then I was just like, F it. I'm going to eat whatever I want. And so I would eat and then go to the bathroom and throw it up and go back. All while, there's this whole like party going on outside of me with all of these adults and stuff enjoying Christmas time. And that happened a few times. I remember looking in the mirror, just like, God, I don't want to be doing this, but I just couldn't stop. It's like when addiction or eating disorder takes you over, it feels like there's a force that just, you can't stop. It's this feeling. If you've ever binged on food and felt like you couldn't stop, you know what I'm talking about. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go downstairs with all like the college kids. Cause at that time I had just turned 26. And so I was going to go down there and just try to socialize with them because there was like a TV with a game on and there were like pool tables and stuff like that down there. I get down there and all I could think about was wanting to eat more food or wanting to drink more wine and then feeling the social anxiety and being around these like college kids who I was never my type of people, like preppy people, like no shade or whatever, but I wasn't like that growing up. I was more like always kind of like punk rocker, skater chick. And then, I just wasn't like that. So I felt out of place and I felt so ashamed. I felt so embarrassed because I've just been throwing up the food in the bathroom like multiple times. So I spend the night at the hotel my parents got. The next day, I'm driving back with my mom, and we're driving back from Fayetteville, Arkansas, back to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And my mom, she knew I was in recovery, but I didn't tell her what I had done. And I felt like so shameful. I don't know if you ever have had any sort of like eating disorder, especially if you're binge eating or doing things like that sort of addiction it can be harder than alcohol addiction because alcohol you can do socially, but then the eating and binging and all of that, throwing up, you do it privately, and that's where just all the shame comes in. Anyways, I was feeling so bad. I felt like I let down everybody in my life, like all my support group buddies and all of that. And then my mom was playing this song by Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you've heard of Abraham Hicks, but she's a spiritual teacher. And this one verse said, "Every moment is a fresh start. Like, why look back when you could just like choose joy in this moment? Every moment is a fresh start." And I was like, wow, that's true. That's it. I don't have to sit there and feel bad. Like, I've been making progress in my life. I'm not gonna let this set me back and feel like now I'm a failure and I'm just gonna give up on my recovery and changing my entire life, a transformation just because of this one bad night. And I decided I was going to go home and share with my support group that I had. So it was on transformation.com. I was also in OA by that time, a 12-step group and for eating disorders. And then I'm going to share with my mentors because one thing with like recovery and transforming your life or making any change in your life, if you have problems, whenever you leave problems in the dark, they just fester. But when you bring them to the light, they lose their power. It's you give them a chance to heal. So bringing the problems to the light and not staying in that frequency of shame, because also shame is like one of the lowest frequencies that you can vibrate at. And if I'm in a frequency of shame, there's no solution. Solutions can't come to me. So even like bumping up my frequency from shame into hopefulness or faith, even neutrality, like I know that something can happen, it allows the universe to bring solutions into my life. And that's what happened. And so that experience of having a plan, going to a Christmas party, completely failing it, going into the bathroom and throwing up, drinking way more than I wanted to, feeling embarrassed, like it ended up being something that made me better. Like I turned it into that, and you can do that too. And then by that time, I ended up stopping the bulimia, the binging and throwing up by February, which was amazing. I never thought I'd be able to stop that. That was like the hardest addiction I've ever stopped. It's really hard to, if you have a food addiction, to just not eat. When other addictions, you can just not use the substance. So if you know anyone that struggles with any sort of addiction or eating problems or anything like that, then share this video with them. Maybe they can get some inspiration out of it, and just know that every single moment is a fresh start. You don't have to look back and be ashamed of something. You can just choose joy now. You can choose joy in the future, and know that whenever you keep problems in the dark, they will just fester. And whenever you bring them to the light, they lose their power, they dissolve. So yeah, if you can share this with anyone who you think it would help, because eating problems, eating disorders, addictions, they can be so shameful and you can't get out of it on your own. But luckily, you're not alone. There's a lot of people who've experienced it and a lot of people who want to help.